I can see some people joining already. That's great. Um, yeah, thank you very much, everyone, and welcome to this tonight's members quiz with Penny Dam Shu. We're this relatively new format of events that we have here at Call for Curators. So it will be divided into two parts. First, a few questions, ABC, to maintain this quiz format that I'm going to ask Penny. And then we're going to go into more detailed questions about her practice. And yeah, so this event is quite also short. So I think it should last around 15 minutes. And yeah, so the CFC members quizzes are very important to us because we get to introduce all of our members, members like Penny, people who participate in the membership scheme, who get exclusive access to our newsletter opportunities that they can find on our website as well. So yeah, it's very nice to have you, Penny. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you so much for inviting me for this event. It's a very nice surprise.
No, it's lovely to have you here. And for people who are just joining and maybe don't know your practice very well, could you introduce yourself and your practice just in a few sentences?
Sure. I'm Penny. Well, you can let go of my surname. Just go for Penny. Yes, I'm a Chinese art curator and an art historian and researcher, and I do several things. I'm a curator since almost 10 years, and I just finished my PhD on art history, and I translated a book, and at the same time I write from time to time for art journals and this and that. So several things on hands, a lot of slashes.
Lovely. So thank you very much. And we're gonna delve into practice a bit deeper very soon. But I'd like to start with a bit of a warm-up question. The first one, and these are gonna have ABC answers. The first question is, what's the most difficult part of a curator's job? Is it curating a proposal or a concept? That's A. B, communicating with the artist, or C, installing an exhibition?
I would go for B, because artists always do something that's completely beyond your control.
So yeah, it's communicating with artists. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I can. I mean, you're a researcher as well and an academic, so I
Yeah.
guess the concept proposal stage is really easy for you. I wish I could relate to that. I believe a lot of people as well. So the second question is, if you could really relive one of the periods of your education, because as you mentioned, you finished your PhD, which one would that be? A, your bachelor, B, your master's, or C, your PhD?
Definitely another PhD.
Yeah, why is that? Was it?
It's a very painful period. I have to admit,
Mm,
it's very struggling, but I that's also the period I learned the most. So, and I think that's a very useful technique even after education. You learn to introduce yourself, connecting yourself to other people. Also learned how to be kind of shamelessly promoting your ideas and concepts and
mm,
welcoming and embracing feedbacks, even criticizes. So I think it's amazing training.
yeah. Yeah, I believe it's also probably the stage where you're most sure what your interests are or what you want to focus on. So
Yeah,
probably most rewarding as
yeah.
well. Yeah. Um, so the third and last question in this bit is, what is your favorite spot for reading and researching? Would it be a library, B, a cafe, or C, at home?
I would say library. It helps you focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, agree with that. Thank you for yeah, answering these few short questions. So now, yeah, let's get more into your practice. So as I mentioned, and you as well, you're a researcher and a curator. So you both finished your PhD and kind of published books, have kind of very academic part of your practice, but you're also a co-founder of the curatorial team XN Office, and you have a curatorial practice as well that's more independent. So could you tell us about the relationship between these two parts, and kind of, what are the differences and how they connect?
Yeah, sure. My curation interest is obviously more in contemporary art, and it's also easier to realize. Whatever project, in fact, is visual discussion of a specific subject. So every project started out as a theme, and then the artworks and the research and writing around it are like thesis of this subject. I actually, for my PhD, I was actually supposed to do the research in contemporary art fields. My subject was copy and original in contemporary art fields. But then I took a side step because I found out while I'm diving into the art historical background study, I realized there are some interesting questions not properly answered, and there's a possibility that I can change people's perspective on the value and social meaning of copy in traditional art context. So I took a side step and eventually write a thesis about the social meaning of copy in traditional Chinese art. Yeah, well, that's mostly how did I parallel those two things.
Yeah, and how do they work kind of now that you've done your PhD, and you're embarking on new projects? I mean, it's very interesting to hear that you took a kind of a sidestep, and that your PhD topic was or idea for it was originally different. So did you have a lot of kind of art historical knowledge before that, or was that a big learning curve for you to suddenly kind of go into a little bit of different area?
Yeah, I think it is a big learning curve. I mean, we are normally trained with Western art history and contemporary art history, which is already a bulky content. But switching to traditional, I had to learn especially Chinese art, the visual language they're using, how to tell the differences and how to get the right sense of things. And luckily, I had support from a lot of artists, so I went to asking them and get mentored by them. But yeah, it was a little bit difficult to start with, but then very soon I realized those two things are very connected. It's like what people normally say is all art is contemporary art. If you see them from this perspective, there's not such a huge difference.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Kind of all art is contemporary art. We love that. And yeah, you mentioned that you were surrounded by artists and got a lot of help from artists. And this kind of more curatorial part of your practice is the XN office. And that's a curatorial team duo that comprises of you and another artist and a contemporary artist. So I wanted to ask kind of how did it start? How did you decide that this is a good combination, and how does this collaborative creative process look like between an artist with a practice and a curator?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So Niu is a very good and excellent artist, and we worked together on the project around 2010, 2011, so quite a long time, and we were very good friends since then. And at certain points, we had a long discussion on our views on art and exhibition, and we realized that we both want to make exhibitions that focuses more than just theory and concepts. They can provide the audiences with a very good visual experience, which means that audiences, when they walk into an exhibition, they don't need to read a lengthy narration or curator's notes in order to understand what is really going on. It can be an exhibition that's much more straightforward and much pleasure to just be in there. So we realized we share the passion on this, and then we decided immediately we should collaborate. And we very soon has set up a set of rules. including that as a researcher, my main task would be doing the background study and learning if a subject is worthy of discussion, and then doing general studies on artists. And me as an artist would be responsible for the visual quality control of the whole project. But we discuss on everything, including concepts, specific artworks, and where to place them, how to improve the experience. We have a rule that number one rule of our collaboration is we only carry out a decision if both of us agree with it. So that's how normally we collaborate in a very brief way.
Yeah. I think you also mentioned when we were talking before this event preparing, I think you mentioned that it's amazing how artists are so good at kind of working with visual material and being able to work with space as well.
Yeah.
That's kind of two very different skill sets.
Yeah.
Really, that you and your collaborator have. So I'd like to kind of follow up on that and ask you about some projects that you curated as Exxon Office. And I think, like you mentioned, a lot of them kind of maybe don't go against institutions, but put a twist on exhibitions and create very, very alternative scenarios of how people interact with your exhibitions in comparison to institutions and museums. So first, I'd like to ask you about After Sunset, because I found that a very, very interesting concept. And if you could kind of introduce our audience to this project.
Sure. Yeah, that is the most popular exhibitions we've ever curated. It was actually a traveling project. It was first realized in Shanghai and then moved to Paris after a year. And it starts with an invitation from Mocha Museum in Shanghai. They have a pavilion outside of the museum. It's a glass house sitting at the center of this mega city in front of a park. Like you can imagine a glass house in front of Central Park in New York, something like that. And it's an amazing spot, and it's very interesting as well to make an exhibition for that glass house. But it can also be regarded as the worst spot ever for a normal art exhibition, because there are tons of people passing by every minute. They are tourists, or they are white-collar workers going to the office or leaving the office. Everyone, no one really stops and reads.
Transitional space.
Yeah, they're just it's quite quickly coming and leaving. So we had quite a struggle to find out what really to put in this beautiful glass house, and in the end we decide to fill up the space with works with lights, so illuminated works. And that was literally the only rule we gave, two rules actually we gave to the artists, saying we want artworks with lights and artworks without image, because if it's a lighthouse and if there's an image, it pops out, it breaks the balance. So that's the only rule. And because it's a glass house, we close the door. The audiences are not supposed to walk in. They can see from outside. And in the end, we have, in this 25 square meters, we have around 33 artworks. So it's a huge group show in a very tiny space. And we decided to switch the lights on at sunset moment and switch it off at sunrise moment, for very practical reasons, because it's bright during the day, there's nothing you can see. And for a little bit more romantic reasons is it lights up at night anytime you pass by, even if you're completely drunk after a dinner party, you could pass by and take a look at the exhibition. So it's reverse to what we normally experience in a museum. And we had very, very nice feedbacks and very interesting things happening in that house. There are people who are really just coming back home from work and they stopped by and they take a look at what is in there. Or we didn't provide explanation, or we didn't provide instruction books, so they can look in whatever way they like. And we also have those grandpas who take a walk in the park in the morning, and they took a glance of work. And there was a street artist, he imitates Michael Jackson, and he used the lighthouse as his background stage for his performance. And I even overheard people talking, coming out from subways, oh, let's meet at the lighthouse. And that becomes a meeting point. So I think that proves what we wanted to do. And that exhibition is an exhibition for everyone. You can enjoy it in your own way. You don't have to understand or learn anything.
Yeah, I think this is what kind of was very interesting to me to see when I looked at the documentation photos from this project when it happened in Paris, that it was gallery vitrine, and the gallery was closed up, right? So you could only look through the window and see the works. And what kind of caught my attention was the crowd outside of people talking and discussing the art without necessarily having to be inside a gallery space, within like white walls. So that's a very nice example, I guess, of your work where the exhibition, the project happens outside. And now I would like to ask you about one called Temporary Museum that you curated, because that took place in a very different setting, like a contrary setting to it. Yeah, could you tell us more about it?
Sure. Yeah. So what you will see, every project curator are quite different, and probably also because we're looking for something fresh, so we don't want to repeat too much. I mean, the After Sunset was a special case because it was invited to be part of the Nuit Blanche in Paris. So it took place in Galerie Liu Sawan in Paris. But the Temporary Museum was in an art center in Shanghai University. And it's a very, very, very wide cube place. It's 5 almost identical wide cubes connecting to each other. And we invited, in this exhibition, we worked with 11 artists. They all have amazing collections, their private collections. So we invited them to display their artwork next to their collections. Some of them are really professional collectors, like experts in ancient statue or ancient furnitures. Even the museum researchers would look for their advice, that sort of connoisseur. But there are some other artists there, they collect children's painting because he's art teacher to children since 30 years. He collects their painting, and they're just like collecting according to their interest or their interest on specific techniques. So it's very diverse, and we kind of defined each room according to the collection, like a normal general museum would do. Like this house is for statue room, and that's a furniture room, that's this painting and prints room. In this exhibition, what we really wanted to do is to present another way of studying artists and their art practices. This show, on the other hand, also proves my point that all art is contemporary art. There's not necessity to separate traditional, historical, and contemporary.
Thank you very much. These 2 projects that we talked about, you can kind of see images from them on our Instagram profile in a carousel to use to advertise this event, and also we'll include links to all of these projects that you mentioned in the XN office once we post this video on our feed after this live has ended. I'd like to kind of end on a question about what's going to happen in the future. Kind of what are you working on right now, and what are you looking forward to?
Sure. We are currently working on 2 projects. One is still XM project in a museum in Beijing, and it's a sort of Wikipedia exhibition on the subject of shadow. The shadow here has different layers of meaning. Sometimes it's used in sculpture to define the volume, and sometimes it's used in photography to really to communicate. It's a narration itself. It's part of the visual language itself. So that will be a quite big show. We will have 2 museum spaces for that. In total, 800 square meters to 1,000. We're still working very hard on that. And the second exhibition is it's a proposal that I made with another researcher, not with me this time, but with another very good researcher on digital art, and it's art and tech oriented. This proposal is now shortlisted for the Hyundai Art Prize. So we're aiming now to finalize this proposal to see if we can win the prize. If we did, we will have the exhibition realized next year.
Well, fingers crossed. Yeah, I really hope that the proposal goes well, and then the exhibition that kind of oscillates around the shadow and how its roles in art. That sounds really fascinating as well. Thank you very much for today, Penny. It was really a pleasure to learn more about your work and what you're up to. And thank you to everyone who joined us for this live. It will be also saved on our Call for Curators profile, so you can revisit it later if you'd like to. Yeah, and this event was a CFC members quiz. So yeah, if you're not aware, we have a membership scheme that you can sign up to, and become a member like Penny, receive our newsletter and exclusive access to our opportunities. We have a 1 week long free trial. So if you go to the link in bio of Call for Curators, you can sign up for free, see if you like, check out the opportunities on our website, with kind of no strings attached. So yeah, thank you very much, Penny. This was really lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank everyone for listening. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a good week, everyone. See you soon.